Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming back to the Proof of Pain podcast. I have my guest, who I'm very excited to talk to about all kinds of things: UFC, MMA, finance, his experience with Bitcoin, maybe even get into some strategy and some STRC. Like I said, he's a former UFC fighter. He's a quantitative analyst. I believe it's at Damp Spring, right? Where you're doing
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I am the lead quantitative analyst there. I run like also a mock portfolio, and then also I work for a variety of CTAs behind the scene. I code systematic models for them, stuff like
awesome.
that.
Perfect. And yeah, and then you've been a trader. So can you just give me a background how you basically, obviously you're an ex UFC fighter, MMA fighter. So can you kind of
Yeah.
give me your background, your how you got into that, and then we'll take it from how that transitioned into finance, because
Yeah.
that's got to be a wild story.
Yeah. I mean, I've done podcasts on my whole life, and so I don't want to rehash it too much. I mean, I'll when we post this, I'll link some of that stuff. But in general, my plan was to be a doctor. I went to school to be a doctor. That was the plan. I kind of wanted to be a doctor, maybe like a chiropractor, like an osteopath. But I was going to medical school, stuff like that. That was the plan. And early in my life, I lived with my mother, and she got the. I don't think they were ever married, but they technically separated, my father and her. And oh, hold on.
No problem.
See, nope, it's a lie. There you go. Now you guys got a real thing. I got all my squawks still on, so it's screaming at me in my ears. but my mother married a bad person, and he kind of was not very nice to me. He was very bad to me, and eventually, when I got 13, I sort of ran away from home, and then I ended up living with my father. Eventually, so I lived with my father, and my father had this idea that he kind of inherited a broken kid. And so he wanted to get me into sports. He wanted to get me in better shape. And so we started wrestling. And when I started wrestling, obviously I was very behind. I started in high school, essentially right before high school started in Minnesota. Minnesota has a killer wrestling scene. And so, I walked in the room and got my ass absolutely handed to me for the weeks, but I kept going back. I kept going back. And eventually I became one of the best wrestlers to ever go to that school and in my area. So that sort of took over my life, that athletic thing, because it was the first time that anyone actually cared about me. I used to be kind of like this ghetto kid. I was very behind in school. I was a smart kid, but obviously I was worried more about survival when I was young than going to school and stuff like that. So, like I got into wrestling, and then I went to college. And when I got on my own, I was in college. I was going to medical school, and I sort of started to have some problems with like my teammates. I started to have some problems with like a lot of people, and I sort of got very depressed. And one of the reasons that I got depressed was just simply because I never dealt with sort of that kind of trauma that I dealt with when I was a kid. And I started to get like aggressive towards my teammates and stuff. And I thought, like I just need a break from school. I need a break. So I took a semester off, and for whatever reason, I decided to try a fight. I have no idea why. I just did. And I went to a bar, and they were like, "Hey, we'll give you $500 to fight this guy." And I was like, "Shit, I need $500 really bad. I'm broke. I have no money." And so I went and I knocked the guy out in like 30 seconds. So I was like, "All right, sweet. Like that's a great way to make some money." And then so like I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it 5 times. And I was like, "Wait, like maybe this is like a good path. Like I could do this. I could still try to wrestle for the Olympics, which was my goal, and then do it that way." And it turned out to just sort of take over my life after that. And then like a few years later, all of a sudden I woke up and I never went back to school. I had a great record in fighting, and it was almost like this could be a career path. And then I just decided to go for it. So that's how I got in. That's how I got into being a professional fighter.
That's such a wild story. You
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does make sense because it feels like that's like a common thread, right? It's always like, some challenges when you're young, and it's either you either channel it and you go the way you did, or sometimes it just goes completely wrong, and then you end up doing something that's horrible, or in prison, or dead or something.
Exactly. That's the path. In general, people who are well off, in general, it's not true all the time. I mean, like people like Armin, who are fantastic fighters. Like obviously he is from a wealthy background, but in general, the people who are attracted to the fight game are people who don't really have as many assets, or they don't have family members that corral them into destinations like I know a lot about finance, and so my kids will know a lot about that kind of stuff, but no one in my family knew anything about money. They were all broke. Nobody had any things like that. So the only way for me to really get ahead in life was to try to shortcut that system, and athletics is usually, kind of what people go to if they have no other options.
So when did you start feeling so were you always interested in finance and somehow just it kind of clicked, or was it like, hey, I need to figure this out, nobody's going to teach me, so I'll figure it out on my own?
No, certainly not always in finance. I was really into computers. I used to love playing video games. Like I said, when I had the upbringing, I didn't go to school that much, and the way that I learned to read, the way that I learned to do everything was playing video games. So I would go to my neighbor's house and I would play Super Metroid and stuff like that, and beat the games. And then we didn't have enough money for a computer, but my cousin's family, who was well off, occasionally would send us like old computer parts. And so like I would do that, and then I would go down to this alley in the back where there's some buildings, and they would throw away old computer parts, and I would build the computer out of it, and then I would learn how to code and stuff like that. And so I was really fascinated with like kind of like the hacker culture. I was really fascinated with things like coding, computers and stuff like that. And so that's the only connection really I had to like the idea of like finance. And so like when I was like pursuing that, eventually when I became a fighter, it's like, oh, I'm finally making some money. Like, what am I going to do with it? And then it was like, I thought back to like sort of that young kid who was, like essentially like thinking like a hacker, but like what's a legal way to make money besides like being a dirtbag and ripping people off, and I came up with finance, and so that's originally how the finance bug started with me.
That's awesome. Your story is like it's resonating. I'm going to ask you a couple MMA fanboy questions because you've had so many fights, but you have a record of 30-12.
Yeah.
And for people that are not aware, that is wild as a professional fighter to be 30-12. You retired in 2021, and you fought some of the best. Some people are still fighting today. You fought Makhachev, you fought Oliveira, you fought Chad Mendes, Danny Castillo, Maynard, you fought Scott Holtzman, Evloev, who's probably going to make a run soon for the title. What was that transition from going amateur to pro? And I assume, did you go, so pro for you was UFC, or was it something else and then the UFC?
Well, when I started fighting, there was really, amateur wasn't a thing. There was no amateur leagues. It was just like you could fight in a bar, for money, which I guess is like not really professional, but it counts on your record. But like there was no, you know what I mean? There was no amateur scene or anything. So you just fight for money, but small amounts of money. And I actually had a decent amount of fights. I mean, my record is 30 wins professionally, like professional, but there's 20 or 30 that aren't on there because I would just fight so often because I needed money. So that's like sort of how I started. And I remember very clearly when I first got into the UFC, I had to take a short notice fight. Like I had to lose like 30 pounds in a week. And I fought a guy named Rafael Oliveira, the tractor. And I cannot, like, I went out there, and first of all, like, I was fighting at 155 pounds, and I walked out there, and I looked at the guy, and I was like, holy shit, that guy is huge. Like, I couldn't believe how big he was compared to the guys I had been fighting, and I had fought at 70, 85, like, I would fight anybody outside of the UFC. And I walked across the cage, and I went to punch him, and I swear to God, this guy double-legged me from one side of the cage and ran me all the way to the other side of the cage. And I remember he like let me go mid-air, and I hit the cage and I fell on the ground, and he's just raining down punches on me. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this is a different level. Like, he felt so strong. He was like so aggressive. But then I kind of snapped out of it. I got up. I ended up losing the first part of the first round, but then after that, I won the fight. And so I win the fight, and then like after that, like I'm walking around, and I'm with my father, and like we're walking outside, and I was like, man, my feet hurt and my legs hurt, and then like I went back to the hotel, and then went to sleep. I woke up the next day, and my feet were like this big. And so like I couldn't even get out of bed. So I tried to like get out of bed, and then I was hobbling around everywhere. So I opened the hotel door, and I looked out because I didn't want anyone to see me like gimping around like a little. And I look out, and I saw like a hugely popular fighter at the time, and he had a walker. So I was like, well, I'm better than that. So I was like, okay. So I gimped out and got on the bus, and so that first experience of sort of the pros, like the UFC is the pro, you have PFL, you have Bellator, you have these things, but it's not the same thing. It's just not, and the UFC is where the big boys play. It's the NFL, and when you first get there, it's definitely a wake up call. And the other wake up call in the UFC that I had was when I got into the top 10. So when you're in the UFC, everyone there is a monster. You know what I mean? Like if you're fighting, you just think about it. You're fighting a guy from Azerbaijan. He's the best guy from there. You know what I mean? Like even if nobody knows who he is, that's a badass dude. He's probably the best wrestler there. He's probably the best grappler there. Like that's a badass fucking dude. And so like everyone you fight, but when you get into the top 10, not only do they train hard, not only are they dedicated, but at that top 10 level, they also have the special genetics too. So it's like the total package. And so that was a wake up call as well. Cause I think, I don't remember exactly, but let's say I was 5-0 in the UFC or whatever. And as I'm progressing, right when I got into the top 10, I get into the top 10, and I remember very clearly like dropping this guy. I hit him so hard, I dropped him. And then it's the end of the first round. And I was like, okay, this is done. And he came out the second round like nothing happened. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like these guys, like every other person I've ever done this to in my life, like they're done. And then this guy was fresh as could be. So
do you think that could have been at the time that they had there were some substances that were maybe, slipping by. Oh yeah. Maybe that could have contributed to that recovery time.
Yeah, there's at least 5 people I fought that were busted for steroids. So, and it was hard to get busted back then. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it were definitely enhanced. There was definitely a lot of things like that. But it is what it is. But at that top 10 level, that's the big difference. And the difference is also it's like the lead up to the fight is difficult. The arena is difficult. The pressure of the UFC is difficult. So if I had to describe one thing that's different about the UFC as opposed to everyone else, it's just the pressure beforehand. It's the pressure of the whole event. It's the pressure of the fight. And fighting is a lot more than just fighting. There's so much more to the business side of it that's very difficult. And so a lot of times, that's one of the things that I personally struggled with. I wasn't very good at the business side when I started. I'm good at it now. I can do an interview like this with my eyes closed. You put me in front of the camera, I can cut a promo instantly. But when I was a kid, I couldn't do any of that stuff. I was one of the most introverted nerds you could ever do. And the whole thing just made me so nervous. And so like that was one of the hard parts for me when it came to like fighting in the UFC.
But I'm glad you shared that because a lot of people probably feel that way. I know. So I have a 10-year-old who's in flag football, and he's considering getting into wrestling. And actually, one of the first times I ever messaged you was a couple years back about that, like asking you what were your thoughts about wrestling and jiu-jitsu and that kind of thing. So yeah, he's extroverted extremely with the people that he's comfortable with. If he's introduced to somebody that, if it's anybody that he doesn't know, then he's very reserved. So I'm glad that you're sharing this because it shows people that, hey, look, man, there's all kinds of different people with different personalities that react differently in different situations. And you just gotta, some people find it kind of weird to say this nowadays. I don't see why, but you gotta man up. You just gotta, confront it, man. Like it is what it is. It's like nobody, all these participation trophies are cool when you're really small, I guess, maybe, just so somebody gets something. But that's not how life is, really. You're going to, and if you think that's how it is, it's going to be a pleasant surprise. I sell lights for a living. I'm a distributor. I don't expect anybody to just give me business just because I'm cool or I'm nice or whatever it might be. I have to compete and I have to bid. And if I get outbid, then it's the biggest lesson that I can learn. It's like trading. There's nobody cares. The market doesn't care that this is Nik Lentz. You know what I mean? This is it doesn't care. It doesn't really care who you are. So I guess just to wrap up the whole UFC MMA part of it, I mean, you fought the who's who. I mean, you've basically fought from, like you were saying, from both Oliveiras. But really, the more known one is.
I fought some of the toughest guys in the world that there's ever been.
Yeah, well, you went to a decision with Makhachev, who's arguably pound for pound the best right now. So that, for anybody who doesn't know, pound for pound means like, of all the weight classes, the best. Yeah. Nik went to a decision with him, which is insane. So I guess, was there any fight that really stood out to you that somebody was just so, or were there more than one fights where somebody was just so overwhelming or underwhelming, or you thought they were going to punch harder or hit harder, or that you were just surprised that they were so dominant, or anything that surprised you about anybody that you went against?
I wouldn't say surprised me as much as there's the two guys that were the freakiest are obviously Charles Oliveira and Islam, and both for very different reasons actually. And when it comes to Charles is probably the freakiest person I ever fought. Like he's skinny, but he's like super fucking strong, like crazy strong. He hits hard, but like you can kind of almost break him mentally, but at the same time, he's like always just insanely dangerous. He's bony, so like when he kicks you, it hurts. When you kick him, it hurts you. Like it makes no sense. Like the guy like he has muscles, but like he looks skinny, but like he's just fucking a freak of nature. Like he's literally like a racehorse, And then when it comes to Islam was actually the opposite. I didn't find him to be very strong. I didn't think he hit very hard. I didn't think that much about him at all. But he just had an insane ability for timing trips. You could tell that his skill was just from hard work and repetition throughout his whole life. Like his timing was impeccable, and it was really one of those things where like I didn't get hurt in the fight, but it was just like frustrating because I would get up and then all of a sudden just like he would perfectly time a takedown, and I'm one of the better wrestlers, and so it was just a strange feeling to go with somebody, because that's somebody like probably like a Mayweather in boxing. Like they've been boxing since they're 3 years old, and that's how like Islam was. Like his timing was just so impeccable, and that's probably the most impressive thing that I've ever dealt with, because like I said, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I mean it like even better. It's like he didn't have those crazy physical gifts that I would attribute to like a Charles, but his just technique was immaculate. And so that was really the only time I was actually like super impressed with someone. There's plenty of times I lost because I didn't train right. There's plenty of times I lost because, at the time the guy may have been better than me, but that was one where like I think back and like I don't know if I could have fixed that at that time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like how I would have defeated that at that time, and without more knowledge and more repetition. And when it comes to those guys like a Khabib and an Islam and stuff, they start so young that's the only way to build that sort of timing, is to start when you're literally like out birth, and I couldn't replicate that because I started everything late in my life. So that was the only time that I was really shocked. But in general, the things that separate and the things that I struggled in life were more the business side that would weigh me down going into the fight. And the fighting part, I have that pretty good. I'm still probably one of the top fighters. It's just, but those two guys are the only ones that like were really freaks, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that right there. Two things. I was going to ask you, was there anything about yourself that surprised you over the years? Was there anything where you're like, well, I didn't realize that I had knockout power, or was it, or I didn't realize that I can um, go 5 rounds and still outlast somebody? Was there anything that surprised you? And do you feel, I guess to kind of jump on that, do you feel like there was anything like okay, so let's say Dana or Hunter or one of these guys calls you right now and says, hey, you have 3 months or 6 months and you can pick your opponent. Do you think you would take that right now based on, how your life is right now? Is it even worth going back? Is it, is there still an itch? Do you miss it? Yeah. So if you had like 3 or 6 months to train and get to your, or whatever time it is that you need, and you actually got to pick your opponent, would you even consider it?
If you would have talked to me maybe 3 years ago, I would have, but now I'm doing very well. I have successful businesses. I make plenty of money. I make probably more money than I did fighting, at least consistent money. So, like, and one of my eyes doesn't work correctly. So, like I have one eye. So it's like I have to wear these special glasses to even see. So, I mean, could I do it? Yeah, I could. I still think I would beat 90 to 95% of the people. It's just, it's just when I retired, I had the eye injury. I have like arthritis in my knees and stuff. And the main thing is like, I could see the writing on the wall that I didn't have a chance to be the top dog anymore. I always had a chance to be, because I was in a title contender fight against Mendez and I lost the first part of the fight and I won the second part. Like I was right there for a title contention fight. And so at one point I was very close, but when I retired, it's like I realized like, hey, time has gone too far. It didn't work out. You're not going to be the UFC champion. And at that point, it's like, why bother? Why take the risk? And then, thankfully, I never got hurt in fights. I never really got knocked out. And you ask what's surprising. I guess what was the most surprising from me is that you could hit me with a baseball bat in the head and I don't seem to get knocked out. So like just my sheer toughness and my grit are pretty legendary when it comes to that. And the thing that made me special as a fighter was that I actually, like, my body I'm not one of those genetic freaks. Now, don't get me wrong. I have better genetics than most people. Like, to be a fighter, you have to have good genetics, physical genetics. But I'm not even close to one of those freaks and also because of my upbringing and how hard I live it. Like I got shoulder surgery, I got knee surgery when I was 12 years old. So I was injured before I even started. And so my body, I was able to win fights with my mind. And so the last thing I want to lose is to get punch drunk. So no, if they asked me if I wanted to fight, I would just say no. But for the first couple of years after retirement, I was ready to go back. I really was. But now, it's been far enough, and like the thought of like fighting, I just don't need it, and I would say no for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect segue. So your IQ got you basically, would you say 30 or 40% extra distance in the fight game? And how would that translate? Yeah. And how would that translate to finance? Because, I mean, finance is a game of, I got to say that I don't know what the number is, but easily 98% of the people probably lose, retail especially. So for you to even get there, even with the right mentorship, like I know that you work with Andy Constant, that guy's a monster on his own. What was that journey like? And how would you say that your IQ, the mentorship that you had over the years, how did that, because that's a wild transition going from fighting at the elite level to being in finance as a trader to becoming finance in the elite level. Not everybody can say that. So if you can just kind of guide us through that.
Well, first of all, I don't really like to think about it like, like high IQ, these kind of things, because there is no doubt that I do have a very high IQ. I do have a very high spatial reasoning and stuff, but I can't carry on a conversation in a grocery store line to save my life. You know what I mean? So like there are certain intelligence things I just don't have. You know what I mean? And so like that personality type thing, like that, like my wife can talk to anybody. And she's one of, like, if you talk to my wife, people leave and they stay like, man, you married the smartest woman. She's so brilliant. Like I just can't believe it. And they talk, and I've listened to them because like she says I'm kind of like an AI or like a robot trying to learn how to be a person, you know? And so I'll sit there and I'll listen to her, and they'll talk for like 2 hours about nothing. Literally nothing. Nothing got accomplished. Nothing got solved. They didn't talk about anything in depth. And those people leave like they just had an awakening in life, you know? Like the mental part I have, the thinking part I have, but the dealing with people part is I'm not so good at. And so that has always been a big problem. And in finance, you do have to learn how to deal with people. And so thankfully, my fight career taught me that through the mistakes I made through there. But when it comes to, I think I succeeded in fighting despite my, like, I think it's more shocking that I was a fighter than the transition to finance. I think the finance, I think the computers, I think that made a lot more sense than the detour I took to fighting, you know? So.
No, it really does make sense. So how did you land on, because finance, there's a million different ways you can go in finance. You can become private equity, you can do this, that. What led you to trading? Because that's another fight in itself. Maybe that's what maybe that's what it is. And how would you define, because there is trading and then you're a quant analyst, basically. You're a quant. So could you even define that for people and kind of explain what you do and why you chose that path in quants and trading?
Well, like a lot of people that get into trading, I started as a complete moron, and I just came in. I invested in some index funds and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I'm making some money. Like, this is kind of fun. And I thought to myself, like, maybe I could try to like trade around these positions a little bit. And so I started trading around the positions a little bit. I started messing with the retirement accounts. And I had like a couple of really good years. And so then like I was like, well, maybe we can start trying to look into like actually trading. And so I started like I saved up some money and I started just a trading account, you know, and my idea was I was going to trade futures and options and see how it went. And I hit it out of the park, you know, like I just started trading and I just started throwing money at things and I just was instantly successful. And so I was like, that's what got me hooked. Just like a gambler in a casino, you know, like you go to the slot machine, you win the first time you press it, and then you're stuck there the rest of your life. And so that's what I did. And I made a lot of money. And then like one day I was sitting there and I thought I had turned a small account into a relatively big account. And like, I needed to buy a house and I had moved to Florida. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just cash out. And so I cashed out. I closed all my accounts. I bought a house. I did this kind of stuff. And then I was like, I'm going to do it again. And I started that count and I was dog shit. I was terrible. like it was just beginner's luck. And then at that point I realized like, maybe I don't really know what I'm doing. And then that's when I started reaching out to smart people. And what happened is I traded with guys that were fantastic day traders. I traded with guys that were fantastic swing traders. But the thing that always bugged me is I would always ask why. I'm like, why are we doing this? You know? And they're like, well, you know, you watch the order flow, you know, this thing is bid, you know, it's going up here. It's going to tick past this level, you know, that's going to wash out the order book. And, you know, we're doing these like order flow things, but I'm like, why? Why does that happen? And the guys were like, who gives a shit why? That's just how it works. And my brain just doesn't work that way. And so I really wanted to figure out why things happen. Like people will say things like, oh, they're going to do a stop hunt. I wanted to know why stop hunts happen. I wanted to know the physical mechanics behind it. You know, like what are they doing? Like, and like, why does it make sense? And so in the process of trying to dissect order flow and to actually figure out these things, that's where I started learning about like HFTs. That's where I started learning about like quantitative analytics. And that's where I started learning about how these computer programs are designed. And this was before, you know, like now it's like a lot more computer driven. But, you know, I started to learn the why behind things happened. And that's what I needed to be successful. And so I was day trading. I was trading the bond curve. I was trading all kinds of stuff. And what people don't realize is the good thing about day trading is that you can go home flat every night. But the bad thing about it is the prep work is insane. The amount of time you sit in front of the computer is insane. There's no breaks. Like you're just locked in for hours and hours, you know? And so it's a very difficult job to grind out a living. And even though I was good at it, I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do, because it's just such an extreme amount of work. Like if you think you're going to day trade and have like an easy life, no, you're going to be at that screen 8 hours a day, every day, grinding your fucking existence, you know? Like, so I was like, I don't want to do that. And so I took that money and I slowly started trying to make some quantitative models. I started trying to do that. I reached out to some coders. I tried to learn. And then that sort of led me to sort of being a discretionary trader, but with like a quant in the background. And so I have algos and stuff for everything, but in general, I have this it's like a team behind me. So I built like a team of computers. I built like a team of systems. And then although like it's like having a full army of people that help me to trade, and then I do the trading discretionally. And so that wanting to learn why things happen and how they happened, and not just do it. Like I just couldn't learn. I couldn't just accept it. And I know people who are way richer than me that don't know how markets work at all. And they just trade, you know, but I couldn't do that. And so in the process to figure out why things happen, that's how I became sort of a macro analyst, and then started making quantitative models.
I went through a similar, I mean, I didn't go into the quant process like you did, but I started off with more of the fundamentals. So I started thinking of like, I dug every book about Warren Buffett, and I tried to do my own app. So I have a little bit of background in web development and whatnot. So I created my own stock screener, but based on the fundamentals and that kind of thing. But I realized that I really have no edge, because by the time I get the data, everybody has the data. Yeah. Hours, days, who knows how long before me. The only advantage I have is time if I'm going to invest in the long term. And then I was like, maybe I could look into technicals, like do the technical analysis and that kind of thing. But it wasn't. Again, I'm doing the same thing that almost everybody does. It's like the best thing I could do is maybe just look at the weekly chart and just draw like the very basic stuff and try to get a better idea, like a MACD, an RSI, and maybe look at the volume a little bit. But it just gives you, and then obviously the price patterns were the biggest thing, and it does give you an edge, but it's such a tiny edge. I was always curious about this world that you're in, and but it's just the hardest part for me was, I guess you kind of hinted at it, was finding the right people and partnering with the right people. How did you end up finding the team that you're with?
Well, one of the things I learned in fighting, like I told you, was that there's a lot more to business than what it appears, right? It's not just about being a good fighter. You have to have a good team. You have to have a good social media team. You have to have good interviews. You have to be good behind the scenes. And so in the process of making all the mistakes in the fight world early in my career, I realized how important connections are. I realized how important having the right mentors, having the right connections in life are. And thankfully, I was able to use my fighting and that ability and that recognition as a way into certain conversations. And so, like, if I was just me, Nik Lentz, and never fought, and I send a DM to somebody, they're probably just going to delete it. But because I was like, I would reach out to these people, and then I would say, hey, you know, I'd have a question, and I'd say, hey, could you answer this question for me? And like, if you help me, like, is there anything that I can do for you? Or is there something to do? And what they would do is they would kind of, usually like the top guys, because I talked to some pretty high level guys, they would sort of like give me like a task that they thought no one would do. They would be like, yeah, sure, do this and figure this out. And then I would come back 2 weeks later with like more data, more things than you could ever want. And they'd be like, holy shit, this kid's serious. And you know, and I would go to the extent like I'd be like, bro, I will fly out and mow your lawn if you want me to, if you will help me with this. And thankfully, the finance community is a special place, because these guys never had to help me, and they just chose to help me. And so that gave me a shortcut to the front of the line. And so it can't work for everybody, but I think they saw that like I had the discipline. They asked me to do something and I did it. And then on top of it, they knew that I was already a fighter. I already had succeeded at the highest level in something I chose to do. And so they didn't feel like their investment in me was a waste of time. And just through that, I gathered more connections, and I just, eventually I was able to get quite a team of mentors and some connections in the business, and that's how I got to my current place. My friend Jimmy Jude, my partner at DSMMA, he started working with Andy Constant. I talked to Andy. We used to just talk back and forth, and then like eventually, like he's like, "Hey, you should come work for us," like we should team up. And then I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, we should." And so it was never a plan to do it with Andy and stuff, but and it's a weird combination because like if you take Andy, you take Jimmy, and you take me, I mean, you just have like three just completely different personalities. You have three completely different people, three completely different styles of trading, three different ways of looking at the world. But I think we really match in like the ideas that like we want to create a system that's built on like integrity and also like being successful and being real. Because there's so many trading things that are a scam. And this business is insanely difficult, even in the best times. So that's how I got connected with everybody. And I guess, like that's how I skipped to the front of the line as far as getting the best mentors I could.
So this is at Damped Spring, right? Because DSMMA is something else, or is it part of
It's just my section of Damped Spring.
Okay, gotcha. So it sounds like you guys complement each other. So that way, I mean, Andy's got some crazy experience, and he's been all over the place. And I heard about Andy.
Yeah. Andy worked at Solomon Brothers. He worked at Bridgewater. I mean, he has wild connections, and like he's a New York guy. Like everything about him, like if you put us together, like you'd never think like those guys are going to work together. But I love Andy. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's an excellent business partner. And so it's been an honor to work with him.
Awesome. So now that we're talking about Andy and we're talking about quants and finance, I guess the show is geared towards Bitcoin and Bitcoin adjacent products. I know that you have experience. I mean, I've read your tweets for years, and I know that you're into Bitcoin. But you, from my perspective, you have kind of like a very like a duality, right? Because it sounds like you were a very early adopter, so you understand. Or you understood. So I guess multiple questions. Did you understand it at the time? Or was it something that you were like, it sounds like a cool thing, so I'll probably just invest in it. And then later on, you kind of understood what it was. And I guess let's start there. When you first, how did you even hear of Bitcoin? Did it resonate? Or was it something like, it's just an investment product or a tool that I can use? It's something new.
Well, MMA was one of the first sports that like people who had money and were trying to kind of endorse Bitcoin got into, because it was an upcoming sport and they couldn't afford to go anywhere else. And so this is really early in the cycle, I mean, we're talking about Bitcoins are $1, like $2 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like we're not talking about like times, and at first I was like, because I was always into computers. I was like, oh, this makes sense, And I remember very clearly, like we were on a bus to go to a fight, and I was talking to some of the guys that work with the UFC, and they were talking about some strip club that was like having like a BTC, or no one even called it BTC back then. They would just say they're advertising some Bitcoin thing. And they're like, this thing is stupid. And I remember saying clearly, I was like, I don't know, maybe it's not stupid. Like maybe it's something we should like look into, And they were all like, you're retarded. And actually, I talked to them like a few of those guys still message me every once in a while. They're like, man, fuck, what a retard I was. Like I wish I would have listened to you. And so because I was into computers, I was like, I learned about mining. I was like, maybe I should make like a little mining PC, leave it in my house, kind of do it that way. I didn't end up doing it. I wish it did, but I just slowly started acquiring some Bitcoin. You know, I got my first Bitcoin talking to a guy in a forum, and I met him in person. So, you know, it was a very different type of transaction back then. You know, it was private wallets. It was a pain in the ass to get started. You know, I had a Linux computer that you have to have a special fucking password to go into, and then, you know, I have like a Tails hard drive that only boots up, you know, a certain amount of ways, and so like it was a bit, everything is like, if the thing fails, you better remember everything on it, you know, like it was kind of dangerous to own Bitcoin back then. It wasn't as expensive, obviously, so it wasn't as much money, but you really had to understand computers. You really had to understand cryptography a little bit, like not to a huge degree, but you had to understand like how to protect this thing, because, you know, eventually it became worth a lot of money. And so that's sort of how I got into it, just being fascinated by, again, how it worked. Like why do people want this thing? Like, what do you mean you mine it? Like, how does that even make sense? Like, what do you mean mine with a computer? Like, what's the computer doing? And why do I need a graphics card, or why do I need this to do it? Like it just in trying to figure out the mechanics behind Bitcoin is what got me fascinated with it. I was never really big into it's going to change the world. I was never really big into the idea that like it's going to be the new source of money, because back then, again, like I said, it was so difficult to trade. It was so difficult to own that I was like, this is not, like, no normal person is going to be able to deal with this. So, you know, I was wrong about that, of how easy it is to transact now. But back then it wasn't easy to transact. So I was never into that. It was just the process of kind of wondering what this thing was and wondering about the future of sort of money on the computer.
Did you ever think about like the scarcity part of it, the 21 million cap, and how it could be digital gold back then? I know that there was still, I mean, there was talk of digital gold at the very beginning, but I think a lot of people weren't really, from the people that I've talked to that were really like the OGs. Mm-hmm. They just got into it because they had to. They either had to buy it for Silk Road or for some other illicit way. It's rare for somebody to have seen or, you know, understood the premise of it at the very beginning. And you could argue that some people still don't believe in that now.
Well, I don't know if I believe in that, but like the thing about it was, everything that I did with it was just by myself. Like, I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't have I went on a few forums, I went online, but there wasn't like this huge discussion, you know, like now. There wasn't this community. There probably was, but I wasn't a part of it. It was just my own personal sort of research into it. And so I didn't even know about the limited nature of it. I didn't know about like everything that involved about it. Most of it was just stuff that I learned on my own. And so like I didn't really have these existential questions about it when I first started, just because it was just something I thought was cool, and it's something I was looking into, and I never really thought, it's one of those things, I never really thought it was going to be anything. It's just like I got it, I bought some stuff with it, and then like it seemed like my change just was ever growing. It was like a tree. It was like a money tree, you know, like it never went away. It's like I would spend most of it, and then like it would just turn into more money, and then I would spend some of it, and it would just turn into more money. And it was like, you know what I mean? Like back then, you know, like now a Bitcoin is a lot of money, but it wasn't a lot of money back then. So it was like, you know, you spend fucking 10 of these things, and then you're like, oh, I only got 15 left or something, you know, like, and then, you know, you buy some more, and like, it just wasn't a thing that I was really concerned about. And I'm not a billionaire or anything, but, you know, it was just something that helped, that was a nice thing to own. And I've owned it for a long time, but now I sold almost all my Bitcoin when gradually, not exactly when, but once it started to get commoditized by Wall Street, I sort of cashed out most of my stash. And so that type of behavior, I thought like it was really starting to get away from its original purpose and stuff like that. So
yeah, that was my next question, which it sounds like you're pro, at least from your tweets. you're not against Bitcoin. I mean, you may have a different idea from other people, or like the hardcore Bitcoin maxis, which is fine. I mean, everybody has, some people wanted to use it originally as money. They just wanted to transact with it. They had no idea or had no desire for it to increase in value. It just so happened to do so. But it seems that you have, so you're not against Bitcoin itself, but it seems like you are, at the very least, skeptical of the whole ETF wrapper and just basically the Wall Streetification of Bitcoin. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally fair. And that's sort of I believe in the idea of cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? I believe in the idea of, to a lesser degree, to the idea of blockchain. Although, being in computers my whole life, you see the radical changes and stuff. And so when people talk about like it's impossible to hack and all this stuff, like stuff changes. You know what I mean? Like stuff changes. And so there's always going to be new dynamics that are coming out with. But the idea of blockchain is, see, probably not everyone's going to understand this, but Wall Street is archaic in a way, right? Like when you buy a stock, like you don't actually get it for like 2 days. You know what I mean? Like there's like all these processes in the banking industry, and they don't need to be that way. They're there for a reason, because it sort of is this control mechanism. And once you start getting into Wall Street, you start getting commoditized. It's like, that's not a cool thing anymore. You know what I mean? And so you're going to lose a lot of when my mom is just owns like a target date fund and it has Bitcoin in it, you know what I mean? It's just not going to have the same growth. And the factors, and the thing about the thing I liked about Bitcoin was sort of the building blocks of it, sort of that original purpose of I was going to say transactionless, but that's not really a word, but you understand, like the instantaneous transfer of money, the ability to skip out on, not in an illegal way, but the ability to not be beholden to a wire transfer, or to, you know what I mean? Like I've wired like a large amounts of money, and I've gotten large amounts of money wired to me. It's an utter pain in the ass. You know what I mean? You got to prove this, you got to prove that. Like I got wired money once, and like it got lost for a little bit, like literally lost in space. And like, so now I'm supposed to get the big check, and like I don't have it, and like the sender doesn't have it, and I don't have it, and so it's somewhere in some bank computer, and I just thought that like that's such an archaic way to do things. And so the idea of Bitcoin is sort of like a radical independent nature of it. I like that. And so the commoditization of it goes against that original purpose that I liked about it. And so I like the idea of it, but once you start getting everybody's hands in it, once you start trying to make everything normal, the thing that made it cool was that it wasn't normal, is that it was trying to make a leap forward, and ETFs and stuff are a leap backwards. And so, I think the crypto community can get good. And then also like the idea that it's a store of wealth, right? That also made, things like, oh, we're going to trade these shit coins, and then we're going to get rich off Dogecoin. We're going to get rich off Rocket or whatever, like that whole degenerate mindset as well. I think it sort of degraded the, I don't want to, like the sophistication of it, as if like, the people involved are not serious people. And so all of that added to me stepping away from that community. And just in general, like I like the concept, I like the technology. I think Bitcoin is likely, sort of the beta test of cryptocurrencies in general. But now if so many people's wealth is involved in it, it's become such a big thing that I feel like it's no longer progressing society forward. And so that's what I would like to see more of. And that's why I liked it in the first place. And that I sort of feel like that got lost a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, those are fair points. That really is. So Saylor, Michael Saylor, he basically, he was pro institutionalization. That's a word. So his idea, and I mean, I don't know which podcast specifically, he's on 1,000 of them, but if I'm summarizing it correctly, institutionalizing had to happen for the next leg up on number go up for that to happen. You know, some people argue that right or wrong. I can see both ways. I definitely do agree with you, and I do miss the days of it being smaller. So almost like a band when you learn of a punk band or something like that, and nobody knows about it. It's cooler, right? Like, but like you said, like a Target date fund, everybody has it, and you know, not everybody, but your grandma can own it, and it's not. But then I think about it. I think that's more of a me problem. So the Wall Street part of it is really, for me, the hardest one to really wrap my head around is there's two truths, right? So yes, spot Bitcoin itself there is a hard cap. There is that 21 million. There is no way to make more of it, etc. But Wall Street is all about derivatives, right? So it's all about making paper gold, paper Bitcoin. So my fear, and I asked this to Richard Byworth in the interview that I had with him, and basically, what's the concern of paper Bitcoin and affecting the long-term price of Bitcoin? And he says that short-term, it is a problem. Long-term, it's not a problem because, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, there is a way to verify how much Bitcoin there is. If everybody were to prove it, or you know, go to the nodes and everybody can verify that, where that's not the same case with gold or any other commodity. So yeah, so that's where I'm kind of the Wall Street angle is tricky, because I can see the pros and I can see the cons, like the ones that you were bringing up, which are completely fair, and we're seeing some of what's happening now. It went all the way to 126. We're at 67, or who knows what it is now. Do you think that Wall Street short term is affecting it, but long term will benefit it price wise, or does it not even matter? What's your perspective on the whole price wise, how Wall Street is going to affect it?
Well, one, I think it's an unnecessary step, right? So like, I used to be a hard commodity guy, right? I really used to be, like, before I got into trading, I liked gold. I owned a lot of gold. I owned a lot of silver. And then I actually, in that wire transfer debacle where, like, I didn't get my money, I actually had to sell some gold, and I actually had to sell some silver at the time, because, like, I was expecting a large sum of money that didn't come, you know? And there's nothing worse than having, like, these coins and stuff, and then you go to sell it and they're only going to give you, like, below spot. It doesn't matter how nice they are. It doesn't matter. You're in a pinch and you have to give them the money. And so, like, you're not going to get the money that they're worth. You know, you're going to take a massive haircut, a massive one. And I had to do that. And that sort of, and so, like, I don't own any physical gold now, and I trade paper gold, and I'm in and out right away. You know what I mean? It's like I can transact instantly, and so that is a benefit, right? That was a benefit. But crypto, that was built into the process, so I don't see why you need an ETF. I don't see why you need this. I think it's not difficult to trade Bitcoin anymore. You know, it's just not. Like, you can do it yourself. You can it's not too difficult to do anymore, at least, like, on a hard basis. But then once you start getting, you know, all these brokers involved, and you start now everyone's just reaching for your gains. You know what I mean? There's so many hands that have to get, there's so many people that have to get fed, that it's just degrading the product. And so that's the main issue that I have there. The thing about Bitcoin also that I don't like is that it's filled with a tourist mindset. And so, like, people are like, well, you know, oh, it was 126, you should buy it, and then they're dumping it at 70. Like, you either believe in the long-term value or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously I sold mine, so I don't. But, like, if it goes to $1 million, like, I'm not going to be upset about it. Like, I like the idea of it, but I think Bitcoin could be fabulously more of a benefit to society at 20,000. You know, because it would be easier to transact. It would be like a little more thing. But at $1 million, you know, you're gonna have to split these things, because you're gonna be dealing with such, like, tiny decimals and stuff, or transactions and stuff like that. And so I don't know. I believe in the long-term idea of Bitcoin, but the actual physical BTC, I'm not a BTC maxi, and I think that there could be a better product already out there. It's just people are so attached to this one that they don't want to evolve and they just want to stay here because that's what made them rich, or this is the thing that they're going to do. And the other thing that I don't like about the community is I'll say something like this and then people yell at me. And it's like, bro, I've owned more Bitcoin than you could ever imagine in your life. Like, what are you talking to me about? Like, I know 80 billion times more, but your average price is 70 grand or 100 grand. You know, the most money I ever paid for a Bitcoin was $500. So like I don't want to listen to what you have to say. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. And so it's like I like the idea behind it, but as I said, and like I said, like I'm not a fucking billionaire. I wasted a lot of it at low value, you know, like the original runoff, I sold a lot of mine. That original blow off to 20, I sold a lot of mine. And like I said, it was just something that was always nice to have because it kept growing in value. But it's very difficult for me to see anything good. And let's talk about the MSTR. You know, there's a perfect example. We have now, it's trying to be commoditized into a bond, you know, and it's going to give you 11% yield. You know, why? It's like it never dawns on anybody. If you understand anything about money, if you understand anything about bonds, right now bonds are near their relative highs. Real yields are 2.7% on the 30-year, right? If you get to 3% real yields, you're good. That's a life-changing amount of money for 30 years. If you invest a good amount of money at 3% real yields, you're beating inflation by 3%. You're talking about a massive compounding gain. And that does not last for a very long time, okay? Like, that type of opportunity doesn't last. 11% is make-believe. It's complete bullshit. 11% gain over 50 years compounded. I mean, do the math. You're talking about an astronomical sum of money. You cannot compound money at 11% annually. You can't do it. So where's the money coming from? What type of scam is this? And that's what it is. It's a scam. It's a perpetual pyramid scam to scam people who have real interest in Bitcoin, who have real interest in changing the way money works and trying to sucker you in, right? And I don't know Saylor personally. He's probably a nice guy, but he's also one of the only guys who ever lost $8 billion twice. You know what I mean? Like he's, and so when I hear him talk, it's just, I wish he was a little more honest about the process, because there's no such thing as 11% compounded gains for the rest of your life. No one's ever done it. No one's ever going to do it because the math doesn't make sense. Okay. Like you'd have like all the money in the world in fucking 100 years. Okay. Like, it just doesn't work that way. All right. So
that definitely makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. Now, let me just, obviously, on the Bitcoin side here. Well, Bitcoin, MSTR, STRC. The argument would be, and I would love to see how you answer this. The argument is that they're doing the arbitrage, right? They're basically, the CAGR of Bitcoin is, I don't know what it is today, but let's say it's 45%, whatever it might be. So that's the CAGR. Obviously not annual. Annual, there's going to be years where it's negative. I think last year was probably negative. But the CAGR is over a long term, which so far has been like 17 years.
Yeah. But it's like, if you start at nothing and you go something,
I know.
Like the it's like saying, like, what the way Bitcoin work, it would be like this. It would be like, what is Apple worth, right? And then let's go back to like Steve Jobs in his garage as a kid tinkering with toys or whatever, right? Like, that's the type of comparison you're doing. Like, Steve Jobs had a penny when he was 9, and instead of buying gum, he put it into Apple, right? Like, that's the type of comparison you're doing. So, like, what's a penny now to Apple, right? You're talking, what's the compounded gain of that? It's an astronomical sum of money, more than 46% CAGR or whatever, right? Like, you're starting with something like, it's an unfair way to start. Like, oh, this thing started at 0.0001 of a penny, and now it's 100 grand. Like, it's not a fair comparison.
No, that's fair. That's
and
true.
also it's not been around long enough to have like we talk about gold, we're talking about millennia. When we're talking about stocks and trading, we're talking about thousands of years. 500 in modern time, 500 years, and so. And like I said, I'm a believer in this stuff. Like I am a Bitcoin guy. I am a crypto guy, but it's just these fantasies that are getting woven into the product are not good for it. And like you said, it doesn't mean it can't survive it, right? Like all good ideas go through harsh times. You know what I mean? Like societies or democracy structures or whatever. All kinds of societal things have gone through ups and downs, and Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general is probably one of those. I just look at this as a more dark time, and I think that this excess, these yield schemes and stuff, need to be washed out of the system before it can truly go to the next level. I feel like it was on the trajectory, and now it's just full of Klingons, it's full of scammers, it's full of all kinds of things that don't belong there. And the community needs to accept that that's not a good thing. And just because it makes you some money, it doesn't mean it's good. There's more important things than making money. There's more important things. And these are scams. They're pyramid schemes. And, I think they really need to be washed out of the system. And unfortunately, the biggest maxis are now cheering it all on, and so I think they're shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to that. But
no, that makes sense.
But I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm wrong about all kinds of things.
So the counter to that would be, so Saylor has that spreadsheet that he I think it was in 2024 he brought out, and the idea is that, again, I'm guessing right now, but I think the CAGR right now might be in the mid 40s. That's whatever it is. Let's say 40s.
Yeah.
Over 21 years, it'll start degrading, and it'll probably average around 21% per year. I'm sorry, 21% CAGR. The idea is that they're going to basically arbitrage that difference. They're going to have that spread. That spread difference is their profit, technically. And then they'll pay out whoever owns STRC. They're going to, or any of these prefers, they're going to pay out these percentages, and that kind of thing. But again, the bet is, or the thesis is, you're betting that Bitcoin is going to continue to outperform and be at 20% CAGR over 20 plus years. If that were to happen, okay, so do you even think that's possible, or not really?
No, I certainly don't believe that's possible. But because everything will be commoditized, nothing can grow at that speed. There's a I mean, if you want to get dorky about it, I can't think of the book. I think there's a book called Scale or something like that. But they're the mathematic of physics and size. Like there's a reason why things don't get so big. In the world, there's a limit to the universe when it comes to how big something gets. You know what I mean? Like things are disproportionate, and when you look at on a physics level, something can't continue to grow at the same speed forever. It just doesn't work. It's like if you're a kid and you just kept growing, you stop growing, you start aging, things change in your life. So nothing is going to continue on the same exponential trajectory up. It just doesn't work that way. Like no finance, no life, there's nothing in the universe that works at a where that it always just constantly gets better. So that I don't believe in, you know what I mean? And so, and I guess second, it's like, if an asset's going to grow at 20% for the rest of your life, buy the asset. The fuck you need a yield for? Like buy the asset, buy the Bitcoin yourself. Go on Robinhood and buy it.
The idea is that for those people that want they don't want the volatility. That's the idea. Like your money stays between a range of, let's say, 99 and 101, and you basically just keep that APR. But I mean, what you're saying makes sense.
So investing, when you own a stock, right? What you're getting paid to own that thing, because you're taking a risk in the company. You're taking that's what a risk premium is. That's what a term premium is, right? You're taking risk with your money and putting it in an asset. And for taking that risk, you are demanding a certain amount of return. So when you buy a stock at $100, right? You expect it to go up. And so you're sort of investing money into that stock, or you're investing into that idea, and you're risking your money. And so in the stock market, you're going to average over time 5 to 7% on your money, right? Because that's the premium you get paid for taking the risk with your money, for funding businesses, for buying a bond or whatever, And that's why a bond is a risk-free rate, because you're giving your money to the government in order to be able to get it back. And that's why it's lower than stocks. So that's why you're going to get 3% real at the best. You're probably going to get 2% real, you're probably going to get 1% real, or whatever. You get paid for taking risk, right? And so if you don't want to deal with the volatility, then you don't get the money, right? Because you're not taking the risk. That's why there's no such thing as a free lunch in life. And so you buying this 11% yielding product, and I don't want to be against Saylor. I mean, I wish the guy nothing but the best. I don't know enough about his company to talk shit about him. He's probably a brilliant guy. I hope him all the best. I hope it fucking works. But there's no such thing as a free lunch in investing. There's no such thing. You have to deal with the volatility of the asset. And the higher the volatility, the higher the risk of ruin, but also comes the higher risk of reward. And so if you want an asset to grow at 20%, you got to expect the higher volatility, right? Than a bond. You have to expect that. And so a 50% correction is something you just have to deal with, because that's the premium you're getting paid for over time. And if the vol were to die down, right? Let's say the Bitcoin vol, let's say you're gaining 20 and the volatility is 20, right? And it drops to 10. Well, then why are people going to invest in it? Because the risk is you're going to get paid less, right? Because there's less volatility. So volatility is essential to make the money. And if you want to ever make money in anything, you have to take risk. You have to risk a person, you have to risk a company, you have to risk something. And so this idea that there's a free magic tree because someone else takes the risk, but it's never going to go down and it's going to give you 11%, it's just make believe. And there's just no other way to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, to take the counter again, so you're stripping the volatility to get that guaranteed. Well, again, guaranteed is a funny word in anything with finance, but in theory, you're going to get a guaranteed approximately 11% because it fluctuates. So right now it's 11.5%. So you're stripping the volatility. You're still getting outsized performance because Bitcoin is currently at a CAGR of 40%. And that's kind of the idea. So do you see any value in somebody, are you just completely against it and it's not even worth your time? Or is there any scenario where considering that they have, I don't know how many decades of cash dividends backing this up, do you see, so for example, a 60-40 portfolio, the 40% is usually bonds. Can you imagine maybe putting again, none of this is financial advice. We should have started with that.
Yeah, don't listen to me. I probably have brain damage, so don't listen.
Yeah,
to me.
and I sell lights, so don't worry about it. Yeah, we're getting into the weeds. For somebody that has a 40% in bonds, and those bonds are yielding, let's say 3%, like you were saying, does it make sense to maybe do 35% in bonds and 5% in STRC, just as a little bit of outperformance, and in the fact that it's risky itself because it's backed by, it's a derivative. Does that make sense? Putting STRC as a in a bucket, this could outperform. It could go to zero. Is it worth it?
I mean, yeah. Of course, it's worth it. It's just on a structural basis, does it make sense, right? And when you manage money and you talk about money, the actual return factors aren't as important as the risk adjusted returns, right? Any idiot can make 500% for 5 years in a row because they got lucky, right? The guy who went and spent $2 on a lottery ticket and got paid $1 billion. Are we going to count his compounded gains? What is that? 2 for $1 billion or whatever. No, it's the guy just got lucky. He wasn't the best trader. We don't go to lottery winners like we do to Warren Buffett or Bridgewater or whatever. We're not asking them for life advice. There's just some guy who was broke and bought a lottery ticket because he was an idiot and then happened to get lucky, right? You go to Vegas and put it all on black, you can win. You go, I played roulette plenty of times and got like a big payday because I hit the fucking number. Right? Like it's like, oh great. Like I had a 1 in 32 chance or whatever it is. I don't even know. Like I don't even know how to play the game and I won, right? Like so it's like is it smart? I mean, it raises the volatility on your portfolio. So there's 5% of it that could turn to zero tomorrow. So is that a good idea? Maybe. I mean, it's all about risk reward, right? Like if you want to take the risk in Bitcoin, yeah. And this is the thing, is like, if you want to risk making money in your portfolio, right? Like the idea you're going to retire with this money, you're going to do this kind of crap with your money. What's the benefit? It depends how old you are. It depends who you are. It depends how much money you have. It depends what you want to do. It's all a person by person case. And so I think they should be open to invest in whatever they want, right? Like there's nothing. And a lot of people get rich in pyramid schemes. A lot of people get rich. It just don't be the last one. So if you can time it and you're good at it, more God bless you, right? I'll trade anything.
Would you say STRC or MSTR? You've mentioned it a couple of times, being pyramid schemes and that kind of thing. Are you associating MSTR to or STRC to being a pyramid scheme, or is it just?
Well, again, I'm not trying to fight with fucking MSTR. I'm no expert in it. I just these yielding schemes, these we need more people. It's funded by stock selling, right? It's funded by them selling stock. It's funded by them going to the market to get money to buy more Bitcoin. I just don't. I believe that the reason that MSTR was so popular is simply because people couldn't buy Bitcoin, right? Overseas, it's illegal. There are certain aspects of it, and so what do? You buy MSTR because it's the closest thing to it. And now you have Bitcoin, the iBit and the shit like that, And like for example, like I traded iBit in my mock portfolio for whatever reason. I don't know why. And then it's like the market is closed and I want to trade some of it and I can't. And it's like, why do I own this thing? Like, this is stupid. Like, I should just buy Bitcoin because then I can have it. I can sell it. I can buy it. I can do whatever I want. Bitcoin is a good thing. I don't see the need to put an ETF wrapper. Like I said, I think it's going backwards in technology. I don't see the point. I don't get it. And I think it's a way to make money. And there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with that. More power to you. I just don't think it's going to last. I don't think it's the way to make money. I think if you believe in Bitcoin, buy the Bitcoin. It's a lot easier. And if you think you're going to get 20% compounded gains for the rest of your life, I mean, you're an idiot, but more power to you, Going
back to Bitcoin, or maybe we should wrap up with digital credit, because that's what they're calling it nowadays. So digital credit is, and to be specific, digital credit, just in case there's some other crypto out there like Ethereum, if there's some other investment vehicle or something that's STRC, but for Ethereum, that's not where, at least that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about STRC, SATA. Those are the two that I'm talking about. I think he's pretty much summarized it. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before the CAGR of Bitcoin drops below the yield that they're giving, and at that point it unwinds. Would that be a fair kind of summary?
Yes. It's going to slow down. It's going to slow down, and it's built into the product. They know it's going to slow down. That's why there's adjustment yield, right? It's not a fixed rate, because they're not retarded, right? Like they know that it's going to go down eventually. They know that it's not possible to stay up here. It's just not a real thing. And so then it'll be like, well, government yields are only at 1%. So it's still at 7, still good. And then it's going to go down to 5, and they're going to be like, 8, still 5 times more than 1%. And then it's going to go down to 4, and then they're going to be like, and eventually it'll be, the risk-free rate, except you'll get paid maybe a little more because it's not risk-free. Essentially, and then that will be it. Or you're going to have a spectacular blow up because one of these days there's going to be a 50% correction in Bitcoin straight down in one day, or something crazy is going to happen, and the thing is going to blow up, right? Like it's going to be there. All these ideas that like it's no different than portfolio insurance in 87. It's no different than people think they can hedge their books with zero DTEs today. Like, there's no way to make limitless amounts of money. It just doesn't work. It's just the way God made the world. Okay. Like you can't do it. And if there was, you certainly wouldn't need a fucking ETF to do it.
That's true. So yeah, so I guess, I mean, honestly, so I get some flack because for as bullish as I am on Bitcoin, and by association, MSTR, I'm also bullish because of the fact that they do own Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I do think it's going up over time. What do you say to people that are like, okay, well, if it's digital gold and it has all the same properties, but even arguably even better properties than Bitcoin because of the portability and whatnot, and the hard cap, and the fact that you can verify this and that. So if it is truly digital gold with those same properties or even better properties, wouldn't it make sense for it to at least have the same market cap as gold over the next maybe 10 years or so? Do you think that's a fair argument, or do you think it's not? That's not very likely?
Well, I think when you study statistics, when you study everything, one of the things that is blatantly obvious, right, is you run into sort of this like a three-body problem type issue, right? The future is 1 billion% unpredictable. Okay, like nobody knows what's going to happen. It's impossible to predict that what happens today is going to happen tomorrow, right? You could walk out tomorrow and get hit by a car, lose your legs. Your life is radically different. There's no way to predict the future because the future itself changes the future. And so it's mathematically proven that you can't the system's impossible to predict. Okay. And so could it happen? Of course it could happen. Right? Is it a good idea? Probably. Like, it's worked so far. Right. So it's at the end of the day, you just have to decide if it's worth investing in. You have to decide if the idea is sound. And me personally, I have all kinds of other things that go on in my life, right? Like I said, I have enough money. I don't need fucking Bitcoin to triple in order to get a better lot in life. I'm okay. I'm doing all right. Right? Like I'm not, like I said, I'm not super rich, but I'm not hurting for money. And so the risk of taking that bet is not worth it to me. But for many people, the risk is worth it. It's just, I don't even, that's why it's weird, because I feel like I'm coming off as an MSTR hater. I'm coming off as a Bitcoin hater, but I'm not. All I'm saying is that it's disingenuous to say that it's risk-free, that it's disingenuous to say that it's going to grow, because one, you don't know that. Two, it could be tomorrow we could have a breakthrough in AI and quantum computing and the whole thing goes to hell. There's all kinds of things that can happen in life that you can't bet on. And so is it a good bet? Sure. Yeah, maybe it is. I thought it was a good bet when it was $500 and I took the, and when it was $100 and I took the bet. Right. But at $100,000, I don't think it's such a good bet. At $70,000, I don't think it's such a good bet. And at 11% yields, I would rather own tips at 3%. Right? That's what I would rather do. But it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that I'm right. I'm not against it. I just think that the entire idea is disingenuous, that this idea that there's a free money tree, that this yielding scheme is always going to work. I think it's a lie. And I think that from a fundamental and from a philosophical and from a view of as a Christian and from God, that when you lie to people, you don't end up winning in the end. And so I think if people were just more truthful, I think if they were a little more truthful about the risk involved, about how it actually worked, it would be a better product. And that's why I think that the Wall Street is a cancer when it comes to it, because it's just being commoditized, it's being softened, it's being radically changed from the high risk it is, because it is a high risk, but for that high risk, you get paid a high premium. And that's the benefit of it. And so if it's a store of value and you want it to grow exponentially, then it's going to do that. If you want it to be a real store of value like gold, it's going to go up like a fucking tiny little bit for the rest of your life, right? So if you think it's going to $1 million, you need the volatility, and you shouldn't lie to people about how it's going to get there, because it's going to be a hell of a ride. It's going to be dangerous, and you could be 60, and that's the time that it crashes 80%, and you lose all your wealth, and now you're eating dog food. You need to be aware of that, and so that's how I would look at it, and that's where I think that people should really focus on it and not get trapped in this idea that it's risk-free, because it's certainly not, and it's never going to be. And if it's going to grow to the levels that people think, if it's going to $1 million, if it's going to $2 million, the only way to get there is through radical, crazy volatility.
So I know that you said that you sound critical, and I mean, honestly, you are, but that's not a bad thing. You're just being realistic, and that's your perspective. That's what I wanted to. This podcast was really about that. It's literally called Proof of Pain. It's not because I'm an MMA, because I'm not. It's because it just so happens I like MMA, but but it's the realities are that it can be painful, and not everything is Candyland, and STRC. It sounds tempting, but there are risks, and that's what I want to get across. And we're seeing it now. Like MicroStrategy was at 400 something in August. We're at 130, give or take. You want to talk about volatility? That's volatility, on top of Bitcoin's volatility. But if you believe in the asset, then that's fine. It's just you have to be realistic with what it is, and people just selling you the all the positive part of a story. It's just you should be fed both sides, and I think that's why these conversations are worth it. And that's why I was looking forward for you to come on. Okay, so we're at the end. We're at the end, and I want to ask you a couple rapid fire questions. And this is completely up to you because I have the time. So it's completely up to you how much you want to spend into it. You mentioned that you're a Christian and you're big in faith. You believe in God. How do you think that? So has that always been a part of your life? And
no, I was a radical atheist. I was 100% against the entire idea of religion and God.
Okay, can you go
for 31 years?
More.
For 31 years of my life, I was a radical atheist. So no, and I'm 42 now. So I've been a Christian.
So what was the switch? What if you don't mind sharing? What made you convert?
It's a very long story. It's something that probably we don't have time to get into. But it's I was as far away from a believer as you could be, and now I have been 100% transformed. And it wasn't through study, it wasn't through anything. It was just through a direct confrontation with God, and it changed me on the spot. So maybe something we can talk about the next time.
Yeah, no, I'm always curious because I'm in my own journey. I'm only a couple months in, really, because I grew up a little bit in my life, but yes, I question things a lot. Let's put it that way. And only recently have I kind of been seeing things and a lot of success that I've had in my life, or even the failures, they turn out to be positives in the long run. And when I look back, I'm like, okay, I can take credit for that, but I think there's something else going on here. You posted a big cross recently.
Yeah,
I think it might be to your right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool that you talked about that. And one of the reasons why I go out of my way and I'm talking about it is I brought it up in a recent podcast and I got a decent amount of messages about it, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be something that threw people off. But yeah, I think some people are on the fence and they're kind of scared or they're kind of hesitant or self-conscious or whatnot. So it's kind of nice to see that other people are a little more bold in sharing their faith. Do you think your faith has helped? You said it was maybe 10, 13 years ago, so you were still fighting. Did that help in any way in your faith or in your current finance? Do you think faith has given you something extra?
Yeah, it's for sure giving me something extra, but I think it's a weird transition, but I think the volatility of Bitcoin and faith are the same thing. Believing in God does not mean that you're going to have an easier life. It doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. It doesn't mean any of those things. And the purpose of life is more of the journey than it is the destination. And so your life is what it is and why the world is the way it is. We can figure that out when we meet God. But for now, I think that when people are drawn to faith, they want to get something from it. And the real thing that you get from it is a peace at being okay with how you are now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need anything else, right? Like, I don't need more money. I have a great family. I follow the values. And one of the things when I was younger, I would look at Christians and I would look at the Bible and I would say they're just hypocrites. They live by this rule set. They're not true. And it was a radical transformation when I realized that most of the gospel, most of all the Bible is really saying, like, hey, brother, like, you are not going to be that person. Like, you have zero shot. You already lost. And so you better come to terms with that and realize you're not that good of a person. And you just need to accept the fact that you don't understand everything. And so life is about volatility. And your best memories are not going to come from being successful. They're going to come from failing and then fighting your way back up. And so I think people look at religion as they're like, what did it give me? And it doesn't give you anything. What it does give you is it gives you the ability to be okay with whatever situation you're in. And so that's the greatest thing. It's like, if I lose money, I'm okay. If I lose my job, I'm okay. If I lose my house, I'm okay. When bad things happen, I'm okay. And so, like, yeah, I think faith is lied about in the sense that it's going to change. It's been the best thing that's ever happened to me, ever. And I've gotten so much richer from it. But it doesn't make me money. It doesn't make me a better trader. It didn't make me a better fighter. It just gave me a peace, which allowed me to be better at all those things.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. And okay, what's your favorite asset to trade?
Probably currently the SOFR curve. I trade a lot of short-term interest rates. I trade a lot of short-term interest rates like SOFR, things like that. I personally like trading the yen. I like trading USD JPY a lot. I like, but it's been going straight up forever, so it's kind of hard to trade. I like the currencies. I like the bonds. I like equities. But my favorite thing is to trade interest rates, just because the front of the curve interest rates, just because they respond well to macro dynamics and world structures and stuff like that. And so I feel like it's a good way to bet on all those dynamics, and it's a more clean way as opposed to betting on equities and stuff like that. So that's what I trade the most.
All right, cool. And the last question that I have is going to be a Bitcoin price prediction, because everybody loves that. So I'm going to give you a little twist. I'm going to give you so 2 targets a year from now, and maybe the next target is up to you, 5 years or 10 years out. And I'm going to give you the current price. It's 68,400, which is a 1.3 trillion market cap. Yeah. And for comparison, we have gold at 33 trillion. So do with that as you will.
Well, as I said, the future is unpredictable. The only thing that I would predict when it comes to the price of Bitcoin is that before it makes a new all-time high, it's going to make a low under $45,000. So it's going to go lower. It's going to crash. One of these yield farming schemes is going to blow up, and then at that point, you will get the actual thing. But for now, I believe Bitcoin is in a bear market. I believe you can see it in the charts. It gets sold into rallies, and I believe that the long-term viability of it is at stake. And unless the community and people wake up to that idea and realize that you don't want to be a fucking ETF, you don't want to be grandpa's toy or whatever, you don't want to be boomer gold, like people like boomers switching into, or even me, I'm a millennial and I'm old now, so like Bitcoin's it's just once it needs to exercise itself from all the badness in it. And so I think it crashes hard. I don't know where it crashes to, and then it can go wherever it wants after that.
That's fair. That's an honest take. All right, Nik, thank you so much for your time. We went to a little over an hour and a half. I know that's a little more than we talked about.
That's all right.
So thank you so much for your time, for your patience, for your honesty, man. Honestly, for being cool and for saying yes. I know that you usually are the one hosting. So so actually, I want to take this time and share all your different businesses and all your different things. I mean, I know that you have your channel DS. I mean, I'll put all the links below anyways, but it's at DS MMA on YouTube, and I think you also have Damp Spring. Yeah, go ahead and share it with people.
Oh, just follow me on Twitter, and if you need anything, just shoot me a DM. You know, like I came here just to have fun and to talk and not to advertise myself. So I hope all the best for you. I hope the best for this channel, and I have no physical attachment. I hope Bitcoin goes to $1 million fucking for you guys. So it'll be in my prayers, and I hope it works out.
Awesome, Nick. Well, Nick, man, thank you so much. Everybody follow Nick, his YouTube channel, his Twitter, his everything that he has. Follow this channel, like, retweet, do all that good stuff. And all right, Nick, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. God bless.
We'll talk. Thanks.